So from the very bottom of my heart, I just want to say a big thank you for everyone to coming to support. And it's really, really heartwarming to see all of you here. And I'm sure that whatever that we are sending back to the Prime Minister's office will be very well received. My name is Patrick Austin, and if we haven't met before, I have the honour and privilege of serving as the President of the University of Queensland Singapore Student Society, as well as to be the MC for this occasion. For those of you who have not had the chance to pen down your messages on the poster, the room will still be open after this formal proceedings, so please feel free to hang around. And I would also like to request all of you to turn your phones to silent mode, and as well remind everyone to be respectful when someone is making an address in front. So, despite not having any direct contact with the late Mr. Lee, we all have been influenced and impacted positively by this man. And we have 3 people today who are going to share their heart on how they have been moved by our very first Prime Minister, our very first Senior Minister, and our very first Minister Mentor. I would like to call upon Darren Tan, Vice President of the UQ Union, to say a few words.
Thank you, Patrick, and good evening, fellow Singaporeans. Exactly 50 years ago, when many doubted the prosperous and inclusive Singapore that he envisioned, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew made a promise. In one of my all-time favorite speeches, he said with full gusto and confidence, "This is your life and mine. I spent a whole lifetime building this, and as long as I'm in charge, nobody's going to knock it down." Indeed. Like the other many promises made, this promise has been honored. Today, Singapore is a formidable global trading and financial hub that gained the respect of countries many times its size. And I ask myself, surely there must be more reasons why we should honor this incredible man than the mere successful architect of modern Singapore that major publications around the world depicted him to be. I found my answer in Dr. Lee Wei Ling's blog. Therein you find no recount of those shiny accolades or any consolidation of those contributions and sacrifices made for the establishment of Singapore. It was Mr. Lee as someone a lot more relatable. A proud Singaporean, a filial son, a doting father, and a loving soulmate. From her articles, you find that Mr. Lee is a very sentimental and individual with unwavering dedication, and that he possessed the ability to muster all the disciplines that a man can possibly harness to execute all that was required to ensure the most favorable outcome. Traits that he had clearly exhibited when promoting Singapore's interests. In one of her many insightful and forthright articles, she mentioned how, like many fellow Singaporeans, Mr. Lee was not one who displays affection of any form despite his unquestionable devotion for his wife, Madam Kwa Geok Chu, as seen in his relentless attempts to be around for her needs when she was very ill. That includes taking her blood pressure several times a day. For the record, during that time frame, he was not only our minister mentor with a hectic working schedule, but also in his late 80s. From Mr. Lee's life, I've learned 3 very important lessons. To not be quick to conclude barren land as useless, but to see all land as land of unfulfilled greatness. The same applies to being too quick to judge individuals around. Second, seize every opportunity that you think you can possibly imagine and take others' opinions with a pinch of salt. For people around as clueless as you are with regards to the future. And finally, constantly remind yourself what we all know but purposely try to forget, that how short and unpredictable life is. treasure family and friends around and not be complacent despite the inevitably hectic schedule, and make every second count by valuing the promises you make and staying committed to people who have placed their trust in you. To conclude, I was once told by an individual during my course of dealing as member of the Young PAB that Mr. Lee Kuan Yew was a persuasive man with an extraordinary ability of conceptualizing even castles in thin air. Nevertheless, Singapore took a gamble. But for this gamble, have we the metropolis that we witness and can be very proud of today? I am glad that we took this gamble and decided to place our utmost faith in him. To end my speech, I hope that generations and generations of the human race remember this man, not for his achievements or his uncanny strategic foresight, but for his adamance in placing fellow countrymen before himself. Thank you, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. May you rest in peace.
One of the committee members of the UQ Singapore Student Society to give his speech.
My fellow Singaporeans, today we are gathered here to remember the life of our nation's first Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. We are here to remember a man who walked among giants, to mourn his passing, but also to celebrate a life that was dedicated to a cause greater than himself. The words of our hearts that we pen down over there are but an illuminating expression that bursts forth into the darkness of the night. Our reverence, our love, our appreciation, and our final goodbyes. My name is Marcus, final year Mass Comm and Political Science student. As a keen observer of Singapore politics and development, a person who aspires public service in the future, and a friend who has had the privilege of knowing one of Mr. Lee's great-grandsons in my secondary school, it's an honor to be able to stand side by side with fellow Singaporeans in Brisbane to eulogize a man who, among other adjectives, was our founding father, our first Prime Minister, and our Akong. We share a special connection with the late Minister Mentor, in that we are all Singaporeans based overseas, in the case of the students here pursuing an education overseas. Mr. Lee read law at the University of Cambridge alongside the love of his life, Madam Kwao Kiok Choo. Upon returning to Singapore, he practiced law for a short duration before ultimately embarking on the journey to political office, a road well traveled. We owe much to Mr. Lee Kuan Yew for spearheading the development of a nation in the modern world, a little dot amongst vast communities, but a dot that was dynamic, strong, respected by giants, and one that we are proud to call home. This is your legacy. We are your legacy. This solemn occasion marks the end of an era. The last of our founding fathers have departed from us. What Mr. Lee and his generation has done was to construct a machine out of spare parts left behind by colonialism and merger. A machine that suffered knocks, but nonetheless refined itself through the years to be what it is today. To quote Prime Minister of Australia Tony Abbott's message in Parliament recently, it is one of the great success stories of the modern world. It will not be long before the duty of running the machine falls on us, regardless of profession, location, race, and religion. As a fellow Singaporean reflecting on the life of a great man, I would like to edify all of us, model the traits that Mr. Lee exemplified. Above all, an unwavering dedication to the betterment of the Singapore spirit, and genuine love and compassion for our fellow countrymen, wherever we may be. Continue to help one another, strive for excellence in all that you do, and remember what it costs to put you where you are today. For all assembled here, allow me to sum up our thoughts as we send our final goodbyes. To Mr. Lee, wherever you may be, you wept for a nation 50 years ago. 50 years later, a nation weeps for you. There are many things that we want to say, but above all, thank you for sharing your life with us. Go forth in peace and rest. Rest knowing that we will carry on your legacy. Anjula, Singapore.
And last, but definitely not the least, I would like to invite PP, postgraduate student in medical sociology, to give her address.
A very good afternoon, evening, sorry, a bit emotional as well. Ladies and gentlemen, my full name is So Santai, but I'm otherwise known as PP, and I'm more than privileged to share with you my little tribute to the late Minister Mentor, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. Before the break of dawn on the 23rd of March, the news of one man's passing broke the entire nation's heart. I'm not a Singaporean, nor I was born in Singapore. I'm merely a Singapore permanent resident, who has in fact spent majority of the recent years overseas. But surprisingly, that didn't safeguard me from feeling this sense of loss and sadness. I mean, I never really knew Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. I've met his son, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, briefly twice. I've had chats with Singapore's ambassador at large, Professor Tommy Koh. There are many leaders and politicians in Singapore that I'm a fan of and I follow. But I only knew Mr. Lee Kuan Yew from a spectrum of praises and critical appreciation found in the media and the literature. So perhaps this feeling of sorrow instead comes from my belief that you should never forget the ones who came before you. In other words, to never take for granted the shoulders of the giants we stand on today. And in this case, the giant of modern Singapore's history is Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. I first visited Singapore when I was 5. I still remember the playgrounds of the HDB flats, and not having seen anything like these before in my life, they were almost the grounds of paradise and heaven for me. A treat of a bag of chips and a can of Coke cost just around $1, and they were my favorite luxuries. As a child, I did not want to leave Singapore, and when I had to, I waited and counted down to the day I could return. It took about a decade before I could, and since from then, life has perhaps put me on a different path. But the point is that the fruits of one man's vision for one nation kept the hopes and dreams of a tiny Burmese girl alive in the land 3,000 kilometers away. So today I'm left with nothing but thankfulness for this extraordinary man. I'm thankful that my family lives a comfortable and safe life in Singapore. I'm thankful for the 4 years of education prior to university, for the gap year work experience, for the leadership trainings, and of all, lifelong friendships and social relationships that Singapore has given me. But my story is just one tiny part of a million others and a billion others who have come in contact with Singapore in one way or another. What I'm more thankful is that Singapore, despite the prevailing critical culture, is now reflecting upon and showing tremendous gratitude on the wonders he did in goodwill. From the days of him helping draft the Constitution, sweeping the streets himself to set the standards of the spotless Singapore is well known for today, and to the very last day that he held on to protect the nation he has sacrificed his life for. And of all, I'm thankful that he can now move on peacefully to the next chapter, whichever afterlife he believes in. But with certainty, it is the one with his beloved partner and wife, Madam Kwa. So tonight, and for many generations to come, I hope we pay tribute to and remember the founding father of modern Singapore, the leader who built a nation with his living, and with his passing, the man who left the nation more united than ever. Thank you, families and friends of Singapore. Thank you, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew.
Throughout history, moments of silence have been put in place to unite people in communal reflection, mourning, and in appreciation and gratitude for the services given by those who have passed on. One of my favorite quotes of Mr. Lee is this, and I'm sure many of you might be familiar with it. I have no regrets. I have spent my life, so much of it, building up this country. There's nothing more I need to do. At the end of the day, what have I got? A successful Singapore. What have I given up? My life. And this evening, we would like to do the same. To set aside 91 seconds to appreciate, honor, and reflect on all the things Mr. Lee Kuan Yew has done in his 91 years of living. And I would really appreciate if everyone can stand up and join me in this moment as we observe this 91 seconds. So let's just take 91 seconds from now to reflect. Thank you very much. You may be seated. For this evening, and as I was thinking of what I should say, all I heard was a song stuck in my head. And it's one song that I think all of us are familiar with, and that's home. You know, what was once a village with just people has become a city that many look up to. And it is that city that we call Singapore, that Singapore that we call home. And it was all because this man fought so hard against all the odds to make a home for each and every one of us. So the next time you listen to that song, and when we celebrate National Day and when we sing all these songs, let us be thankful and grateful for Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. I would really want to thank all of you once again for coming down and showing us your support. A big thank you to my committee who helped pull this together at the very last minute. Thank you, Darren, for your support. And thank you, Sue, Sue, who is the president of the Singapore Club of Queensland, for calling your people to join us in this event. And if you have not written down your messages, please don't forget to do so. And just to let you all know, there is a Black Sunday movement that is actually going around. So if you want, you can wear black on Sunday to pay your tribute. We have come to the end of the formal proceedings of this event. Thank you very much once again, and we'll see you soon.